She had not always lived alone. There was a time, distant now, like a memory belonging to someone else, when she had shared a roof, a table, a life. But that was before she understood that the things you build can be taken from you, and the people you love can just leave. Her name was Eleanor Vance. She ran a trading post at the edge of the Dakota Territory, where the plains rolled flat and endless, and the winter came down from the north like a closing fist. She was in her late 30s, old enough to know better, young enough to remember what yearning felt like, even if she had buried it years ago. She wore her hair pinned up in a working bun, the kind that kept it out of the way, not the kind that stayed neat. Strands escaped through the day, and she pushed them behind her ear without thinking. By evening, pieces hung loose around her face. No one was there to see it. She had chosen this isolation carefully, the way a wounded animal chooses a dark corner, not to heal, to be left alone. It had worked. Until the night the man fell through her door. The wind had teeth at night. It came down from the north, in long, howling sheets, driving snow across the plains, until the world became one white wound. She was closing up. The last customer had left at dusk, a trapper with powder and lead, who did not ask questions. She preferred men who did not ask questions. She latched the door, turned the lamp low. The stove glowed orange in the darkness. She was undoing her hair when she heard it, a drag, a scrape, something heavy pulling itself through the snow. She stilled. Her hand found the pistol on the shelf. She pressed herself against the wall beside the door, listened, a breath, ragged, wet, then a word, barely spoken. "Please." She opened the door. A body fell across the threshold. He was younger than she had expected, mid-20s, shoulder-length black hair, matted with snow and blood, high cheekbones, a nose that had been broken once. His eyes were closed, but moved beneath the lids, like he was still running from something in his sleep. He was powerfully built, broad shoulders, thick arms, but shorter than she had first thought. Same height as her, maybe a fraction less. His body was dense, the kind of strength earned through years of survival. She rolled him onto his stomach. The back of his shirt was black with blood, frozen stiff in patches, dark red crystalline, where the wound had bled and frozen, and bled again. He must have been riding for hours, maybe longer. She stood over him, the pistol still in her hand. Every instinct told her to drag him back outside, close the door, let the cold finish what the bullet had started. A woman alone could not afford kindness. Kindness got you killed. Kindness got you sold. She lowered the gun. She dragged him to the stove. She cut the shirt away. The fabric had frozen into the wound, and she pulled it loose slowly, working by firelight. He made a sound, not a scream, something worse, a low groan that came from somewhere deeper than pain. The wound was not clean. A bullet had passed through, entry below the right shoulder blade, exit through the front of his chest. The edges were angry, red and swollen with the beginning of infection. She cleaned it with water from the kettle. He flinched at the heat but did not open his eyes. She stitched him in silence. The needle moved through his skin with small, even movements, the way her mother had taught her to mend linen. She worked until the wound was closed, then bound it with clean cloth. He did not wake. But he spoke, words in a language she did not know, not English, not the French the trappers used, something older. He said the same thing over and over, softer each time, until the words faded into breath, and the breath faded into nothing. She did not understand what he was saying, but she understood what it sounded like. It sounded like goodbye. She sat with him through the night. Not because she cared, she told herself this firmly, But because a dead man in her post would mean questions she did not want to answer, she watched his breathing even out. She watched the fire cast shadows across his face. She watched the hours crawl toward dawn. When morning came, she found him at the window. He was standing with his back to her, one hand braced against the frame for support. The stitches stood dark against his skin. He was staring out at the snow-covered plains, his shoulders rising and falling with slow, careful breaths. "You did not have to help me," he said. His English was careful, each word placed like a step on uncertain ground. She crossed to the stove, added wood. "You asked. I answered. That is all." He turned. She saw his face properly for the first time. Stern, rugged, good-looking in the way Blade is good-looking, functional, dangerous, beautiful in the same breath. His eyes were dark and held no warmth, not hostile, just empty. He watched her for a long moment. "Why?" She met his eyes. "Because it was cold. Because you said please. Pick one." Something flickered in his face, not a smile, but close. He looked away first. She did not ask his name. He did not offer it, but he stayed. The first day he sat by the stove and watched her. She moved around him like a piece of furniture she had not decided where to place. The second day he picked up the axe and split wood until his wound bled through the bandages, and she had to stitch him again. She did not thank him. He did not apologize. The third day, the door to her back room stayed open. By the fourth day, she was making coffee for two. He noticed. He said nothing, but he drank it. His name, he told her on the fifth day, was Dakota. He said it while she was weighing flour for a customer, a whiskey trader with yellow teeth who had stared at him too long. Dakota had stared back. The man had paid quickly and left. "Dakota," he said, after the door closed. "It means friend." She almost smiled. "Friend? That is a lot for a man who showed up bleeding on my floor." He did not smile back, but the corner of his mouth twitched. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Then, "Ella." He nodded. He did not ask for more. Days passed. Weeks. She stopped counting. The snow deepened. The trail south became impassable. Dakota stopped talking about leaving. He started working instead, chopping wood, hauling water, repairing the lean-to where the horse sheltered. He did not ask permission. He simply did what needed to be done. She learned him in silence. She learned that he moved like a man made of shadow, silent, until he chose to be heard. She learned that he ate slowly, deliberately, as if every meal might be his last. She learned that he watched the horizon at dusk with a stillness that reminded her of a held breath. He learned her too, lives, and decided together to face whatever came next. The door would open, the men would come, the fight would find them, but she was no longer standing alone.